name is what? My name is His name's Sadie.
Hi, Diane Quinn-Scanlan, and this is my review of episode 394 from Undertaking the Podcast called Cremation, Then and Now, Temporary Urns. So, as you saw, a temporary urn is a black plastic box, and as we know, it comes with a plastic bag inside, little zip tie that holds it all together. And in this episode, the guests were Barbara Kemmis, who is the executive director of CANA, which is the Cremation Association of North America, and Jason Engler, who is a cremation historian. The main topic was cremation containers and the presentation of remains. So they were really focusing on the temporary container, which you saw at the beginning of this video, and how for some people it's kind of off-putting. It's very impersonal, and it's just a cold or warm plastic box with some ashes in a bag. That's the perception from a lot of people in the public. So CANA has done research, and they did a bunch of interviews and surveys to see what people thought in the funeral industry. And the perception that we're an all-in-one is what the general public thinks, which is true because I've had a lot of people in my family even say the same things. They don't realize, especially in Michigan, where you can't own a crematory and a funeral home, they tend to think that we take their loved ones into our care, we take them downstairs, stick them in the oven, cremate them, and bring them back up and hand them to them when we're done, which obviously is not the case in Michigan. So they don't realize that there's steps along the way. So we do a pretty good job, I believe, of making sure that they don't realize that, because there's really not a need for them to know that we're taking them somewhere else. It's not very super important, in my opinion, long as they know that we are taking care of their loved ones, that their loved ones are being monitored, and they are getting who they are getting. But when a family comes in, and they come in and they select a direct cremation package, which has to be on our GPL according to the law, it does show on there that it includes a black temporary urn. So in my opinion, the best thing you can do is during your arrangement, let them know that, and then go further by explaining to them what that temporary urn is. Let them know that it's just a black plastic container. We actually have one without a name tag in our arrangement room, and I often will show families that and say this is what they will come back in. We have a selection of different urns around the walls and on shelves, and we also have a book from Crescent that we give to the families at the time of arrangements to look over. So if they don't like that, that's what it comes with. They're given that opportunity right then to look it over. Another thing that they talked about during the podcast, which I really thought was awesome, was the presentation of the cremains, and how typically, I'm not sure if it's handled everywhere like this, but I know that we do it where I work, is the family comes in, they come into our office, we hand them the cremains, we do move them from the bag that the crematory puts them in, we put them in a nicer bag, but it's still, here's your loved one, here's the paper, sign it, thank you, have a good day. And they pointed out in the podcast that, this is everyday routine for us, but this is the first time they're getting their loved one back, and it can be very emotional for the people at the time, and that we should always remain vigilant on it and try to make it different or more special than just handed over a desk and given to the family, especially if it's in a temporary urn, because we work hard to make the families know that we care about them and their loved one, and so we should do that extra step when presenting cremains so that they still feel that way throughout the whole process, not just during a visitation or only for families who are having a visitation, that type of thing. You don't want to exclude the direct cremation families from feeling like they matter. So it was pretty cool, the suggestions they had. They had, you can take the family back into the arrangement room and have the urn set up already if you know they're coming in, and have the urn set up in a display way, like on the table, so they can come and have a seat, and then ask them, would you like some time? Or just say, we're going to give you some time. Set this paper here for you to fill out with your information, but feel free to take your time long as you'd like to stay. And I thought that was really nice. Or another way you could do it is to take them into the chapel. So if you go into the chapel and have them set up like you would for a memorial visitation where the urn is on display up in the front, or you could just have them come in and sit down if they get there before, if you didn't already set it up. Have them come in, have a seat, and then go and get their loved ones' cremains, bring them to them out of the container, like not still in the box, not in the bag, just hand them the urn and give them time to go over it. And I thought those were really cool ways, because we do just do the over the desk transaction. It's real fast. Thanks. Cool. Have a good one. If you have any questions, let us know. So I do want to try to make things a little bit more special with the receiving of cremains in the future. So for me, and I think that's how the topic relates to my studies and my future career, because it's giving me ways to improve my interactions with families. It's given me ideas on how to make the experience during this awful time just a tiny bit better, if that's possible. There wasn't much I disagreed with when the speakers were talking. I think that they might have been a little heavy on how terrible the temporary urn is, and because not everybody thinks that it's just this terrible plastic impersonal box. Like, some people are completely fine with that. I even know some people who still have their loved ones in that, and it's not a temporary urn, it is just their permanent urn at this point. And whatever makes them happy, and to each their own. So, and maybe to them that black plastic is very durable and conscientious and like very good. Like, you can't just assume that everybody is not gonna like it and that we should change everything, just like you can't assume that everybody's going to not like it or like it. I think that was really confusing, sorry. So I think that's the only really thing that I disagreed with. Everything else, they were pretty spot on. I do like the ideas they gave. Something we do where I work now is, when we do let the families know, and if they are hard up for money and they're like, oh, we really can't afford an urn right now, we do have 3 different urns that we are able to offer to the families at no additional cost. One's like a tall brown box, one's a short brown. Both are wooden boxes. They're very plain. They can be engraved for no additional charge. And then there's a metal urn looking one too. So more of the traditional urn looking, because I did have a family tell me before that the wooden boxes don't look like urns. I said, well, we have this metal one that looks more urny. So that was pretty cool to know that we do take a few more steps, that we don't just because one of the options they had given was that to switch all our temporary urns to just like brown basic ones, but I don't think you have to do it for everybody, because like I said, not everybody dislikes it. So there was It was a short episode, and I kind of wished it was a little bit more talking about like where it started, the temporary container, like when it became that black plastic. So it would have been cool to hear more about that, and I'll probably do some research on my own because I'm curious. But otherwise, it was a pretty good episode, and I did learn a lot from it, and I hope other people are listening to them, because even if your place that you work at doesn't do the things listed or allow you to do those things, you can always keep it in the back of your mind and do it later. And I've added another fun little video at the end of this for you. It's kind of a running joke with a couple of us, and even with my family. The temporary urns that we get come in a what we call temporary silver bag that we often just stack up and give back to the crematory so they can be recycled and reused. But sometimes you might want to use them for other things. Thanks for listening to my review of the podcast 394.
Girl, don't do it. It's not worth it. I'm not going to do it, girl. I was just thinking about it. I'm not going to do it. I did it.